suicide attempts, drug abuse, white supremacy, and thanks to Jesus, I'll never be the same. Growing up, I'm part of a really big family. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters with the same parents. We went to church every Sunday as a family in a big 15-passenger van. My dad, growing up, was pretty abusive to mostly the boys. Every type of abuse you can imagine except for sexually. He'd hit us, he'd throw us downstairs, he'd pull our hair, he'd slam our heads into the wall, he'd starve us. It's a lot of abuse, and that traumatized me a lot growing up. And we went to church every Sunday. We did devotions after church as a family with lunch. And that really pushed me farther and farther away from God. I knew He was real, and then it really started becoming like, why would He let this happen to me? I started getting into drugs and alcohol pretty heavy, probably about sophomore year, after I had a big health issue where I lost a kidney. And that really made my life turn the opposite way. I started stealing a lot from my family, pawning stuff so I could have money for drugs, so I could have money to go do stuff that I wanted to do. And that eventually had a lot of issues with my family where I wanted to basically just go do my own thing. I almost got expelled from high school. So I ended up going to a military school to finish high school, and actually kind of brought me back to like a good place. I was waking up early, I was working out early, but I still didn't have God in my life, and that was a key factor where I just slipped back into my old ways. Ended up getting kicked out after I went to jail for a couple nights for stealing some stuff. And that where I just was still drinking and smoking, just doing my own thing. So I bounced around from friend's house to friend's house, still just living in my worldly ways. And about, I want to say 2016, I started a relationship where I accidentally got the girl pregnant. So we had a baby on the way, and I started working as hard as I could, providing for her. She ended up putting me on a restraining order, so I couldn't be there at the birth, and also putting the kid up for adoption before he was born without my consent. After all of that, and I found out that I didn't have any way to get him back from the adoption after he was born, I started just doing my own thing again, and it got to a point where I attempted suicide, and I shot my eye out. That's where I realized God has more for me in life, because I should have died. I was part of a white supremacy group called Aryan Brotherhood, and I used to live that lifestyle for a little bit. I never did anything bad or anything to anyone, but I just had that mentality and that mindset that I hated all races but white. I got out of that, and about a month or so after I got out of that, I found out a bunch of those guys are serving time in prison right now to this day. And that was 5 years ago.
Which one is it? This one?
You want me to take it out?
No. Father, I thank you in Jesus' name. God, I thank you for vision in Jesus' name. Thank you for this bullet being removed. Like doctors would see. The bullet's gone.
In September 2017, I attempted suicide, and ever since then I've had throbbing headaches and migraines and phantom pains from losing an eye and the bullet still being in my skull. And at this end in 2019, Todd White prayed for that pellet to be removed. And by the grace of God, in December 2020, I had a head scan done by a family doctor, and the pellet has been fully removed, and there's no damage done to the bone anymore. And that's when I really wanted change in my life. So the next day I started going to church, Difference Makers in Damascus, and that's where I wanted it, and I knew I needed it. I knew God was real. I just decided to go after it, and I haven't stopped running since. I hit the ground running, and I just continued going right after God. I've struggled with alcohol, and still, even after I started going back to church, I gave that up on the 1st this year. I'm almost 3 months clean. I haven't smoked weed or anything, And I actually recently started a ministry at my house helping people that are drug addicts and alcoholics and trying to give them a better life through God, not just through a worldly perspective. A little more recently, my dad and I are finally repairing our relationship. So God got me out of that also, and he got me out of drugs and alcohol. He saved my life. So yeah, I've been 100% going after God, and it's just my whole life is completely flipped from one way to the next, and it's continuing to happen. Blessings and just love and joy has just constantly filled my heart. I haven't been depressed since probably November, December last year at all, and I used to be depressed on a daily basis. I haven't had any anxiety in probably the last couple months since I gave up drinking. I realized that was a big stressor in my life. When I drank, I get depressed easily, I'd get anxious easily, I'd get irritated easily, and once I gave all of that up, a lot of those mental illnesses just lifted off of me, and people have noticed it too. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13. We all experience times of testing, which is normal for every human being, but God will be faithful to you. He will screen and filter the severity, nature, and timing of every test or trial you face so that you can bear it. And each test is an opportunity to trust Him more, for along with every trial, God has provided you a way of escape that will bring you out of it victoriously. My name is Josh Wilcox. I was an addict. I was a toxic person. And because of this, I'm changed. That's right. Oh boy.